Hallelujah. 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 We just want you to know that we're serious about this approach that we have, and we want everybody that can be helped to be helped. And we want to, apart from prayer, and apart from just seeking God for mercies and assistance, we want to know and have an intelligent and practical approach to all of these immigration issues and policies that are coming out in the country. And it's better said by those who are in charge, and it's better explained by those who know best about it. It will help us to have a very accurate position and perspective about what is going on in the land. We don't want to be like an average, just an average person in the society who just feels like, I said last week I was in my barber's shop, and the topic of immigration came up, and David Cameron's name came up, and all everybody said after they went on was, now wow. Everybody just went away. You see that generally people have that approach like, well, it's happening, it's probably not happening, or I'm not concerned, or it doesn't have anything to do with me. But the truth of the matter is, even if it doesn't have anything to do with you directly, you probably know somebody that knows somebody who is directly concerned when it comes to immigration issues. You're better well informed than to be ignorant about the situation. The Bible itself says, my people are destroyed because of lack of knowledge. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Anyway, without much ado, let's receive Mrs. Jenkins. Put your hands together.
Amen. Amen. Praise God. Hallelujah. My name is Mrs. Jenkins. I'm also a believer as well. I'm here on the platform of ABLE. ABLE is the Association of British Nigerian Law Enforcement Officers. And I'm here with my colleagues from the Home Office Community Engagement Team. My day job is with the Home Office as well. I work with Border Force, but I'm not here as Border Force today. I'm here as ABLE, supporting my colleagues. ABLE was set up to bridge the gap between the community, Nigerian community, and enforcement agencies, because we felt that a lot was happening within the country that people were not aware of. And rather than get the information from the right people, you find that people were going to the wrong people who were advising them wrongly. And also the fact that for a very long time, there has been so much negativity towards Nigeria and Nigerians. And we felt that if we do not sell ourselves, nobody will sell us. If you continue to put yourself down as a community, nobody will, praise you. So we felt, what? We do a lot of things within the community. We contribute a lot to the community in the UK, and it is imperative that the elements, maybe the 0.001, that is the bad eggs amongst us, who are the ones that are known, we sort of turn that around and say, what, as a British Nigerian, this is my country as well, and I'm actually contributing to ensuring that the streets of UK is safe. I've got 2 boys, and you know what it is when you have boys, black boys, is double challenge. So it is imperative that when my boys go out on the streets, they are not labeled and they behave very well. It is imperative that they are not part of statistics within the community. So these and many more are the things that ABLE does. Now we're here today, just like Pastor said, it's all about awareness within our community, because for so long, a lot of people have been wrongly advised in terms of their immigration status. Some people have been told, if you have overstayed here and you make yourself known to Home Office, from there on, you meet yourself at Murtala Mohammed Airport, which is not true. We're also saying and encouraging people that if you're here and you have exhausted all avenues to stay in the country, there is no point walking on the streets and looking over your shoulder all the time. That is not a life. What then happens is you then find other people exploiting you because they know you're vulnerable. You do somebody will employ you rather than pay you. Because they know you're here illegally, they would underpay you for starters, and you'd have no rights, because as soon as you open your mouth, they will say, I'll call immigration for you. What sort of life is that? We also know that there are some people that lawyers and immigration advisors have given them wrong advice over the years, and they found themselves in a situation where, rather than make it better, they've made their situation worse. One of the things that we also do is have immigration surgery one-on-one, where people can actually come to immigration officers and say, okay, this is the situation. They will look at it and say to you, you've exhausted everything you have. The best thing is for you to go home. And interestingly, there is an organization now, because what ABLE has said to the Home Office is, yes, we will promote voluntary return, but what we need is engagement on the other side of the house, or prepare people so that when they go back home, because you find people that have been away from the country for like 10, 15 or more years, and they don't have a clue as to what to do. But interestingly, there is a young man who Home Office is we will be looking to engage, who sort of has a program of reintegrating people back into the country. I can tell you that after we had an awareness session at the High Commission with some faith community leaders, and since then, what the High Commission has fed back to us is that every week, minimum of 10 people have been coming to say, I want to go back home. Because what you find is when people are picked on the street, you go to the detention center, you don't go home in dignity. You don't have the time to wrap up your affairs. If you go home voluntarily, it's about, if you have any business that you want to wrap up, you have the time to wrap it up. And you go home like any other person. Nobody on the plane knows that you're returning home because you're going voluntarily. Unlike if you're picked up, you're being deported, everybody on that plane, if you're not on a charter plane, knows that you're being deported. So it's about our dignity. It's about your dignity. So I hope and I pray that, just like the pastor said, back to the Bible, my people perish for lack of knowledge. We should not be perishing because we have all the information at hand. All we need to do is to assess that information. So without further ado, I'll call on my colleague Pat to speak from the Home Office perspective. After that, if people can please write, I know that people can, your business, I don't want my business known to everyone. So if you have questions, whatever it is, write the question. If you don't want to ask it after Pat has spoken, write it on a piece of paper, pass it to us, and we'll try and answer it. The ones that we're unable to answer today, we'll come back to you to give you answers. Once again, can I say a big thank you to Pastor Mike and to the church as a whole for accepting and inviting us. Thank you.
I too would like to thank Pastor Edwards and the church for inviting us here today. We really, really appreciate the opportunity to explain what voluntary departure is all about. And I would also like to thank Yemisi too, because had it not been for ABLE, we wouldn't have known about the church and the opportunity to speak to everybody. The Nigerian community has long established roots in the United Kingdom, and many people arriving in the UK do so legally and for legitimate reasons. It may be for a visit to the family, or they get a visa as a student to continue their education. They may come for a holiday, or indeed it may be for business reasons. However, illegal immigration affects everyone. It has an impact on communities, businesses, and the economy. the impact of illegal immigration on taxpayer-paid services such as the NHS and schools has been well publicised, and it's something that we are all aware of. What is less well known, as the embassy mentioned earlier, is the impact on the local shop owner, who is undercut by another employing people willing to work longer hours for less money. And in relative terms, we would call that modern day slavery, people being forced to work in situations for very little money and not finding a way out. We want to focus our arrest activity on the most criminal and harmful and abusive illegal migrants, and the employers and the landlords who deliberately exploit them, not those who overstay their visas, work more hours perhaps than they should do so, students, or are in effect victims of modern slavery. We're all aware of individuals in the UK who are not criminals. They may be destitute or living in poor housing conditions and are probably afraid to approach us. And we want to let them know that they can approach the Home Office without fear. They won't be arrested. We'll help them. We'll buy them a ticket to return home without being arrested, and they'll be able to return to the UK at a future date. Anyone leaving the UK on a voluntary basis will have the opportunity to return to the UK. Home Office Immigration Enforcement is working in local authorities in London and throughout the country, and you will see them driving around in their vans. It's no secret we want illegal migrants to know enforcement officers exist, so that they realise there is a risk of being arrested, and if they don't come forward, and begin a process of sorting out their status. We want to fill our immigration detention estates with those who cause the most harm: the murderers, the rapists, the criminals who cause prostitution and inflict the scourge of modern day slavery, those who consistently lie and cheat to escape removal from the UK. These are the types of people we are actively looking to arrest. For those groups, it's worth spending the time and the money to forcibly remove them from the UK. However, there are alternatives for those who do not fall into those categories, and it makes financial and practical sense to have a different approach for the majority of illegal migrants. It costs approximately £15,000 of the taxpayers' money to arrest, detain and remove somebody from the UK. And that doesn't even take account of the money spent on legal challenges and the cost of healthcare, etc. It costs significantly less, about £1,000, to assist those who really want to leave the UK voluntarily. You may not know that. We really do want people to come forward so we can help the vulnerable and the destitute to return home. Voluntary departure has been available in the United Kingdom since 1980. Unfortunately, the Home Office haven't been particularly good at advertising that. So to redress that balance, we're going out to communities to explain what is available to people. In religious and community groups all over the UK, we have set up local immigration surgeries with a clear commitment. We will not arrest those who genuinely want our help to return home. This is not a trap, and it is really working. Last year, there were 24,000 voluntary departures. It benefits you, the taxpayer, but it also benefits the individuals, as they can return to the UK after 2 years rather than be banned for at least 10 years. They can return home on a normal scheduled airline with dignity as a normal passenger rather than on a charter flight with criminals. They're not arrested or detained. They have time in the community to sort out their affairs and notify their family, rather than be held in an immigration detention centre for several weeks until their removal. As members of the community, you may have already seen people who would benefit from departing the UK, but you will see more during the coming months. A new act has been passed by the government, which means that illegal migrants are going to find it much more difficult to access services and facilities. A few examples of the new act means that driving licences are being automatically taken away from people without leave to the UK. Landlords are required to check immigration status or face large fines. People will be prevented from opening new bank accounts, and the NHS will introduce a new levy, so healthcare is no longer free and it will become very expensive for some treatments. The benefits of being in the UK without leave are reducing. Changes to the powers of enforcement officers also make it easier for them to arrest, detain and remove someone from the UK, so the risks of being in the UK illegally have greatly increased. For the vast majority of illegal migrants in the UK, it is much better to return voluntary. This isn't about racism or focusing on particular nationalities. It's about the clear distinction of those of us who are in the UK legally and those who are here illegally, working illegally or assisting illegal migration. For the vast majority of illegal migrants, we want to help them depart the UK voluntary so that we can focus our arrests on those who are that we're all most concerned about in the community, which I mentioned before. Those criminals, those murderers, those rapists, those who prey on the vulnerable. We are genuinely here to help everybody, and I hope that we can help people in your community that may be suffering. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me. I really appreciate this. As Yemisi mentioned, we're happy to take questions, or if you don't want to, you can write them on a card. And I hope that I can allay any concerns that anyone may have had, and the perceived perceptions of immigration officers. Thank you.
Yes, good morning. Well, I work with the police, so I know about this. Some few years ago, I tried to find out about voluntary repatriation home, but to my discovery, I discovered that helping people go back to Africa or elsewhere, there was not much help, and I think the payment was quite small, because I met some few people a few years ago who are willing to go back, but trying to work out how much and how they can help them, there wasn't much help. Is there a particular fee or any amount you help to repatriate people home?
There is some money available for certain people to return home. Not everybody would be eligible. If anyone has applied for asylum, they'd be entitled to some small remuneration, and indeed, if there are people with families, they too would be helped. It's not a lot of money, but a lot of people in the UK are here on their own, and they may not be eligible for anything. Only the vulnerable single people are eligible for anything, or women who are victims of trafficking would be eligible. People suffering with mental health conditions would be eligible for some money, but the vast majority of single people are not eligible for any money. But, we know that there are people in the UK they come to the UK thinking that it's the land of milk and honey, and unfortunately things don't work out the way they expect. And then they find themselves in a rut and they don't know where to turn. So they're on this treadmill or a hamster wheel, and they're not getting anywhere. Things are not getting better for them. In fact, things could be getting worse. And they need to know that they can come to us if they genuinely want to return home. They don't have documentation, we can help them with that. And if they don't have the money to pay for the flight ticket, we can help them with that too. There will be some people that have come to us for assistance who want to return home, but they want to pay for their own ticket. Now, those who pay for their own ticket are only banned from returning to the UK for up to a year. If the department pays for the ticket, then it can be between 2 and 5 years, depending on how long it is they've been out to the loop, or if we didn't know anything.
How much are we looking at? How much
Exactly.
for those who are
That's what I was.
It's about, is it 1,200? 1,500. It's 1,500 pounds. Have you got?
There is a scheme called Assisted Voluntary Return. Assisted Voluntary Return is actually good for families. Each member of that family, irrespective of the age of or the number, gets 1,500. £500 is put on a ticket on a card which they can withdraw, and then when they get to their destination, the 1,000 balance is then given to them to help them set up business or maybe to pay for school. Yes, people say it is small, but what you need to look at, you're looking at it relative to Nigeria. What we need to understand is that when people are in a situation or in a country illegally, you need to balance one, having been picked up and staying in detention, or returning home in dignity and trying to start your life. Yes, it is difficult, but like I said earlier, I know very well that things are getting better in Nigeria. I know people that have gone back to Jamaica, that have gone back to Ghana, that have gone back to Pakistan with this same money, and they have set up business. The young man I was talking about earlier, he has, I'm not sure I have one of his booklets here. What he's doing is, a few people that have gone home, he has actually set them up in business in Abuja, in Abia, and in Lagos. And what we are asking him to do now is to have a proper documentary rather than a photographic documentary where people can actually listen and hear, rather than, you're just reading, anybody can write and anybody can put anybody's picture. But when you see somebody telling you that this is a process that I went through to go back home, then it's a different ball game. Yes, we can, say the money is small, but we also need to understand that it is not actually right. It's about us looking at the quality of life that we're living. I'll give you a good example. There's a young lady who is returning home voluntarily. I only met her about 2-3 weeks ago. She came here as a student in 2009. And unfortunately, when she reapplied, she sent her papers home for the visa to be renewed. They couldn't withdraw the money. So the Home Office sent all the papers back. When they sent the papers back, all she needed to do was to fill in the space for the bank where the money will be withdrawn. But guess what? Somebody in the community advised her, submit a fresh application. The poor girl submitted a fresh application. Of course, when it got to Home Office, it was a case of dealing with it afresh. So her lawyer said to her, you know what? I'm sorry. They did everything. They answered, the best thing is for you to, you don't have any other leg to stand on. So, young girl, she then said, okay. She was abused when she was young. So she started a small group talking to people, and she had come across people in her situation who people have said, become my sex slave and I will give you papers. So she's dealing with that group of people. And the young girl, thank God, being a Christian, decided, you know what? No, she said she was praying one day and God said to her, you need to go back home. She's bought her ticket now. She bought it. She's going back on the 28th of August to return back to Nigeria. And luckily, this reintegration organization that I spoke about, because she had already started something here, even though she couldn't register it, I called up the young man to say, I've got somebody who is returning to Nigeria. Is there a job opportunity? And the guy said, you know what? Yeah, that's interesting because someone from Ireland is setting up an NGO in Nigeria and looking for an administrator. So when this young girl gets to Nigeria, she has a job waiting for her. And there are so many people like that. But if you do not come out and engage with the people and talk to people, there is no way you'll be able to access that. That money is only like subsistence, something for you when you get home. It is not something that you rely on to say, oh, this is what I need to make my life. So it's about encouraging people that, yes, the money is small, and we cannot decide, okay, we'll give Nigeria £2,000 and we give other countries, and it is not for us to decide, as a matter of fact. So I hope that sort of, thank you.
Thank you. Just one more question, please. What is the attitude of the immigration, right? Someone is illegal, but they're working hard, you understand? They have their own employment and they're working hard. What is the attitude of the immigration towards such people? I'm talking just as a neutral, as a member of the public. What is the attitude of the immigration towards such people? Though they may be illegal, but they have tried to, gainfully have an employment. They're not working, but they're working for themselves. What is the attitude of immigration towards such people?
But they're working illegally.
So you still term them as working, even though they have...
To be honest with you, we have immigration controls. And unfortunately, if people are working illegally, they need to regularise their status.
Any more?
This gentleman is back. Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, my question is a bit of a two-barrel question. The first one is, what is the rule for UK nationals who want to bring in adult dependents? It looks as if the rules are more favorable to EU nationals than the UK nationals. Now, the second one is UK nationals who want to bring in their spouses. The law is also more favorable to EU nationals because somebody might be a EU national doing the cleaning, having £6 or £8 an hour, will still be able to bring a spouse. And then when it's about UK nationals, there is a whole lot of barriers. I want a clarification on these. And if it is not that the UK border or immigration is being unfair to their own people.
Unfortunately, we're governed by EU rules as well. And as you said, it does look as if we favour European national spouses over British national spouses. We have no control over what the EU dictates, and we have to follow the rules on that. Yes, unfortunately, it is a little bit difficult. However, there is a process that both EU nationals and their spouses go through, and British nationals and their spouses go through. They are different, they are slightly different, but we can't change that because, as I said, we have to abide by EU rules as well, as we're part of the EU.
Yeah, regarding your question regarding the EU law, we've got no control over the EU law apart from the British law. But the advantage is this: the EU law, if you're bringing your spouse, he or she will be given probably 5 years to be here, or 5-year residence the first time. But if you're a British citizen, bringing in your spouse, you'll be given 2 years. So there's advantage of you in that aspect because you could actually work towards you getting your indefinite stay on time before the EU applicants. Okay, so even though if it's easier for them, you're going to get the papers faster than them. So you could balance the equation there.
I've got a couple of questions. Can I go on?
Yeah.
Yes. First of all, is the issue of you've managed to mention one person you know who assists with social integration in Nigeria. Well, it's not a nation-centric. The voluntary removal, the voluntary return rather, it's not Nigeria-centric. For example, here we have people from South Africa, people from Ghana and everywhere. What has the UK done to be able to enhance the social integration of those who voluntarily want to return? And how can, when you juxtapose that against the backdrop of the fundamental human rights of those who are here and have been here for so long, 15 years, 20 years, and you ask them to go back home, in some cases, I've seen cases where a person left, for example, Nigeria or Ghana as a teenager, maybe with parents who became illegal and finds himself in the system and is still illegal as an adult. Telling that kind of person to go back home, for me, it looks a bit like a breach of their fundamental human rights. That's the first question. The second one is, I'm wondering, questioning the legality, if you can throw a bit more light on the legality of a person being stopped on the road without committing a crime and just being picked up, like the situation that happened in Peckham some couple of months ago or weeks ago, where the immigration just went into the streets and were asking people. So what is the legality of that? I mean, it's people have a right. In many nations, many civilized nations and developed nations of the world, you don't find it. I've lived in America, lived in Canada. You don't find it that the police or the immigration will approach a person on the streets and just say, "Can you explain it?" without committing any crime.
No, we don't.
That's just two of my questions, though. But if you can throw lights.
I'll start with the last one.
Okay.
Okay. I think it's more important. That actually is not the right incident that happened because I was there. We were in the office and we had everything that happened. It was a visit. We were going in to arrest somebody. So it was not like we were walking on the street and we just felt, okay, she looks like an immigrant or that one looks like
She
that.
did mention as well that it's better for you if you're an illegal immigrant, instead of looking over your shoulders everywhere you're going, to do a voluntary return. People in some other civilized parts of the world don't have this kind of problem.
All right.
You understand
Let me
what I'm
just
saying?
break it down for everybody.
Okay.
We are not actually after you to go back or if you don't want to go back. The main target we're after are people that have been victims. You've not been in a place whereby, I've been in a place whereby we enter the place to arrest people and people are happy that we're arresting them because they've been exploited. They were actually crying and pulling our shell, please arrest us. Because they've been used as sex slave. Some have been, bullied to be their maid and no one to run to. All of a sudden, these guys are busting through the door with power just to arrest the boss for trafficking people. So this was created to help people that feel there's nowhere for me to go to, and we tell them that there's a place for you to go to. At the same time, if there are people willing and you want to, after you've been through your lawyer, your solicitors have exploited or your bank balance, because I've seen people that have paid thousands of pounds. I wish if they've kept that money, even though they get removed or voluntary departed, they'll be living large. They won't be talking about the 1,500 that we might be giving them that you're more interested in. Because a lot of people have spent thousands of pounds. I've known people that have spent more than 10,000 pounds for solicitor. Oh, we're going to do this. Then we'll do an EU application. You're not applicable because you are not even an EU citizen. You have nothing to do with an EU. Why is he telling you to do? He doesn't have any knowledge about it. But because the solicitor says so. And these people have been exploited. These are the people we're targeting. So if you're talking about what happened in Peckham again, We did not. People just felt it's this group of people that call themselves no borders, and they feel they could just come in and just harass officers. The next story you're going to be hearing is that we're going to be arresting them. You see, most of those people you saw on the YouTube, the following day, they were arrested. Most of them, because they assaulted 2 officers, a male officers and a canine. So they were both arrested. About 6 people got arrested the following day. So it's not like we don't put it on YouTube, but it happened. And we did not pick on people on the street.
I mean, any arrests are intelligence-led. We're not allowed to go into business premises or residential premises without warrants.
Okay. Is the police empowered to make arrests on behalf of or pass on arrests to the immigration in cases where probably various cases like stop and search and probably driving offenses and all that?
Well, a lot of immigration offenders are found by default because they've committed a traffic offence. If you commit a traffic offence, you have to provide identity, and therefore, if a police officer comes across somebody, they will ring our command and control unit and establish if this person.
Okay, sorry
is
for
an
being a bit
immigration
pushy.
offender.
Are you saying to me categorically, clearly, that a person does not stand a chance of being harassed at the train station, bus station, on the streets by immigration based on this issue of the policy of voluntary removal and all that? Or you don't do that? You're saying categorically that doesn't happen?
You're still talking about a long time ago.
Without crime?
We do not go about train station looking for people and harassing them.
Okay.
We do go on a police-led operation.
Okay.
This is police looking for criminals. At the same time, we're immigration officers, and we're with them. If they're talking to them, we've got the right to speak to them. But we personally, we do not go looking for them. We've been intelligently led to them towards by somebody or the other.
Okay.
So the police will actually be stopping you, probably at Tower Bridge, for driving without a license, and we'll be asking you, what's your name? And you're not on the system, so your case now moves from being a person driving without a license to someone that has no right to be in the UK. So that's how we kind of encounter people, but we do not go about picking people on the streets.
Can I just add, Claire? When I said people looking over their shoulder, is because, for example, if you go into McDonald's and there is a fight or something, right? You go in there innocently, but then the police are called and people there are being questioned. So by default, you come into contact with them. And obviously, your name is asked, like they have said, and it then becomes evident that. So it's something actually leads to another.
Okay.
It is not as if you're walking on the street and somebody stops you. Okay. No, there is always a link that defaults to you then coming to contact with immigration people. People have this notion that, it's about you walking on the street. No, it's not about that. So that is why, you have to be very careful where you go to, what you do, who you interact with, because it might be that the police is looking for, you might be walking on the street and the police is looking for the person you're working with. So by association.
Yeah, at the same time, again, we have a central system. So we, the police, the customs all work together hand in hand. So if the police could do a check and find you to be an immigrant, they will contact the Home Office. So we have to come and do the job. And if we're doing an operation now, we come discover that you've got a weapon, drugs and all that, we call the police. So it's like a vice versa situation. If you have a job that we're doing and they will find, this is not our job, this is for the police, we call them. And if they're on a job and they find somebody that, this is for immigration, they call us quickly. So they could arrest on our behalf, and we could arrest on their behalf too. We could actually arrest somebody for possession of weaponry and all that. We'll just take it to the police station, and they will bring them to our own station soon.
Okay.
So that's how it is.
If somebody is working in, somebody is working in a place where somebody has been identified, not necessarily that person, but another person has been identified to be working in that for maybe a totally different crime, and then you have immigration and police doing a joint operation. Obviously, when they get to such a premises, it will be a case of identifying the people
So
there.
it's sort of a chain reaction.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that is what people need to understand.
The other thing that I wanted to mention was that, and I can give it a tangible example of this, where we held a surgery in an Indian Gurdwara in Ilford. We've been running these for about 2 years there, and somebody came to the Gurdwara and said that they wanted help to go home, and they needed a travel document, and the immigration officer took their details, and the first thing they did when they went back to the office was to put a note on the system, which was, please do not arrest or detain this individual because we're helping them with a voluntary departure and we're dealing with the documentation process. A few days later, there was an immigration team that visited the premises where this gentleman was, and they weren't looking for him, they were looking for somebody else who they did encounter, and he was asked to produce his documentation, and the first thing he said was, I have been in touch with you people, and I went to the surgery in the Gurdwara in Ilford. And the immigration officer there, ironically, knew the immigration officer that does run that surgery, and said, "Oh, was it Gargi that you saw?" And he said, "Yes. How do you know?" "Well, she works for me." They checked the system, and yes, indeed, the note was there, and he wasn't detained.
Okay, so how long does the processing with regards to those who want to do a
Go
voluntary
home.
return,
Yeah.
how long does
Yeah.
it, for example, in a scenario like you
Yeah.
mentioned, like somebody who needs a travel document,
Yeah.
or somebody who, if I want to be naughty, I'll say somebody who is stateless or who wants to prove to be stateless,
Yeah.
in that he came in probably with another person's details,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then he has refused to declare his particular country. How
That's
long?
okay.
How
Yeah.
long does that
Yeah.
take?
But you see, if he's declared
it's
himself...
not voluntary if
Yeah.
he refuses
If
to
he-
declare.
Yeah, if he's declared himself stateless and he comes to us and says that he wants to voluntarily depart, then obviously he's decided that he wants to go home, so he's going to tell us what country he is from. It doesn't take us long to book a ticket. We can book a ticket within a couple of hours. Booking a ticket home is never the problem. It's the documentation.
The documentation.
It's getting the travel document, and so it's however long it takes to get a travel document will dictate how long it takes for somebody to go home.
Okay, my other questions. If you're being quite honest, how robust is the social integration program that the immigration? Because in one dimension, it's not really wise to tell people to go home to nothing. What you will create is a lot of fear and intimidation, and people keep hiding and turning deaf ears to watches. How robust is the social integration system? And in a case where you find somebody who believes based on fundamental human rights that he deserves, even though he's an illegal migrant, he deserves to be here more than he deserves to be back home.
Okay.
How do you handle that kind of situation?
So there's two parts to this question. If I take the second point first, which is the length of time that they've been in the United Kingdom, people have the opportunity to submit an application on the basis that they've been here for X number of years. That has never gone away. That's there. Obviously, they need to get a good immigration advisor or a good immigration lawyer. That's where your challenge is. But if somebody has lived in the United Kingdom longer than they'd lived in their own country, and they've got the evidence to back that up, like school reports, etc., then the caseworking team in Sheffield will look at that, and if they can demonstrate that they have lived in the United Kingdom longer than they'd lived in their own country, then the chances are that they would probably be granted.
Right.
But if they've lived in this country longer than they'd lived in their own country, and they can't back that up with tangible evidence, because you have to remember these caseworkers do need to look at the evidence. It's the same as in court, you know, it's the balance of probability. You have to have that evidence to back it all up. If the evidence isn't there, then hearsay isn't enough, really. And that's the challenge for the individual. But yes, if they've lived longer in the UK than they have in their own country, then
is that the only fundamental human right grounds that a person can remain, even if it's illegal?
Well, there's some people would be granted sort of discretionary leave if they can. You know, it's difficult. To give you, all cases are individual, so it's very difficult to say, to reel off a list of things. Each individual has their own unique situation.
But, sincerely, I would really like you to throw a bit more light on that, because what this kind of policies that are coming out will create is a situation of everybody trying to hide under the umbrella of fundamental human rights. You see where I'm coming from, and so we really need to know.
They have
you cannot
you still
give
have to
specific
demonstrate.
cases. I'm not expecting you to tell me specifics, but I
But
mean,
you have to remember, we're immigration officers, not caseworkers.
Okay.
So if for the caseworking aspect, you need to go online, or you need to write to the team in Sheffield. We can't approve or dismiss a case or reject a case, because that isn't our role. We've seen it at the end of the end bit, rather than.
Okay.
Sorry. Regarding that again, if you've been in the country for more than 20 years, I think you've got a high chance of being accepted, your application being accepted. If you've been in the country below that, and your lawyer or solicitor is deceiving you, look, I'm after people that your solicitors are deceiving you. I don't want you to lose your money.
Based on that point you're
Yes.
raising, is there redress available for somebody who has been sincerely misled, who stood a chance to regularize their status? I've seen a lot of situations where students who have given into the community, they've paid their school fees. They are entitled to remain in the country for a particular length of time. I've been sincerely messed up by immigration lawyers. Is there redress available? You see, because we must have an equitable version of the law. It cannot just be a straitjacket.
Yeah, but you need to understand that it's not the Home Office's responsibility to regularize your stay for you. As you said, you need to seek knowledge. So it's up to them to go and seek the right knowledge. A lot of people will be misled in any way, but it's not up to us to do that. Our own responsibility is to make sure that what you're putting to us...
I don't understand that, but I'm saying that based on your understanding of the policies, I mean, so that the policies are not just viewed as a machinery just to force people unfairly and without the instinct of moral to just go back home. Are there redresses available from your own robust knowledge of the immigration rules and laws? Are there robust redresses available for those who have been sincerely misled, or their cases have been mishandled by phony immigration lawyers?
If there are, as you say, phony immigration advisors, there is an organisation that was set up by the government. They're funded by the Home Office, which is OISC, which is the Office for Immigration Services. OISC will investigate, and they will take them to court. Any immigration advisor that has misled people. All immigration, what you have to remember is all advisors, all immigration advisors have to be licensed.
I do understand.
Yeah.
What you said, like, I
And with the
understand.
lawyers, then
Yes.
you'd report
But
them
what
to
you're
the Law
saying in essence
Society.
is that there's penalties for immigration advisors
They get prosecuted.
prosecuted. That same
Yeah.
equitable position that makes the Home Office to think it deemed and right
Yeah.
to penalize an immigration officer or lawyer that
Yeah.
misinforms a person should provide a level of redress
Yeah.
for those who have been misinformed.
Yeah. Well, the burden is on the individual to make sure that if they come to the UK, if they come into the UK to as a student, that they're sponsored, and they're sponsored by the correct college. There's a list of colleges that are genuine. If they were on the list and they were genuine when they started out, and then the Home Office find that they're not as genuine as what they thought they were, and they were removed from that list, those individual students are given the opportunity to find another college that is on the list. They're not penalised because it wasn't their fault, because they were on a list originally and then removed at a later date.
Okay.
It's okay.
I think in addition, with regards to the redress, unfortunately, the Home Office would not refund the money you have spent, to get a wrong advice. The only thing is, if it's a lawyer, then you can report them to Law Society, and they'll be blacklisted.
No,
And that's
but it's not just about the refund of the money. I've seen situations. I sit here every day and I hear all kinds of things when it comes to immigration. I've seen situations where students have lost their status based on maybe the fees for application fees have changed, or the submitted based on the dates or the time period where they're meant to submit, they were late by maybe a couple of days, or situations where the immigration lawyer advisor holds on to the response of the Home Office and the student doesn't know that he's already out of status, and he goes on waiting thinking that his case is still pending. Now what I'm saying is, if I'm able to establish that the immigration lawyer I used was phony and misinformed me, and he is penalized by the OISC.
No, the OIC does not penalize the lawyer. It is there are two. Immigration advisor is different from lawyer.
Yeah. I get what you're saying. But you get the idea of what I'm saying.
Yes.
If that can be established, why can't the Home Office look at my situation and say, you know what, this gentleman has been a victim, a casualty of
Bad advice.
Bad eggs in the system. We'll give him another opportunity to represent his case or represent his application, instead of saying, you know what, you're just going home. Because he had genuine intention to come into the country to come study. He had all his intentions were genuine. He has not violated, as far as he's concerned. These are just little, if I may, flimsy sometimes error clause or rules of the game that made him to lose his status.
From immigration enforcement and voluntary departures, that's not part. It's not this part of the Home Office that can give that advice. That has to be Sheffield, where the caseworkers are. They deal with all the applications. I mean, you probably know immigration is such a quagmire. There are so many rules and regulations. It's such a vast subject that it's set up into different departments.
That's why we don't want to leave people to swim in that quagmire of seemingly possibilities and ideas of that give them some level of hope. Things need to be clarified. As far as I'm concerned,
the burden's on the individual.
Something to take away.
Yes, that's what I'm saying to you. You don't have to have all the answers. But I'm saying this to you because you're part of the system. You're part of the government. I mean, it's something to look at, because as long as there are nebulous waters that people think that they can solve, they will keep trying to solve it.
Yeah.
You see,
Yeah.
this is where the position is.
Yeah.
So if things are not properly clarified, when it comes to some of these issues,
I think it's something to take away and refer to that area of the business. And then we can then encourage them to put something out in the public domain, and obviously Able would have a link into that so that people can then go into there. But like, Pat said, it's not what we can really answer here.
I've got a quick question, and I'll be very quick. How long has an individual got that has been in this country illegally, under the 20-year rule, but have set up business, but wants to present himself using the voluntary departure scheme? How long has that individual got to wrap everything up and go back? What's the maximum length of stay after they've presented themselves?
Well, we wouldn't expect them to take 6 months or a year. I mean, if they're thinking about it, then they need to perhaps start doing something about it now. This is why we want to advertise that voluntary. There isn't a deadline. There is no deadline. But we wouldn't want, if somebody came to us and said, look, we want to go home, but we don't want to go home till next year. Well, don't come to
It's got to be reasonable.
It's got to be a reasonable length.
What is deemed as reasonable?
All right. It all depends on your situation. We do have a lady living on the 20th of this month. She was encountered 2-3 months ago, and she had a baby, and she said she doesn't want to leave now because her baby is still very new, and she's trying to get EDF, whatever, injection, immunization for the baby, and felt, okay, fine, when is it going to come true? She said NHS said the medication is not available, and there was a letter from NHS saying, oh, we've run out of this medication, so we'll let you know in time. So I said, fine. So based on individual situation, we left her. And when she already had the injection, she said, fine, when do you want to leave? And she said, look, what about the end of this month? And we picked a date today. We all sat down, we picked a date. Is that okay for you? She said, fine. So it all depends. Some people will say, can I leave next week? We'll have to get your ticket first. Yeah, can you make it like tomorrow? Some people, that's individually. There's some people who say, okay, I'll just go and get my money, buy some stuff, ship my load and all. And they'll get in touch with you. They will bring themselves to the airport. They will say, can you give me a ride to the airport? So, different situation. But if you think you want to leave like next year, June, please do not come to us now. Wait till like probably May and come.
Okay, I just want to ask a question. You've already mentioned something about this earlier on, but I want maybe a further confirmation from you, because I'm pretty sure I was watching the UK. There's a UK border show, something on TV.
Oh, UK border force. That's a few years old.
Oh, okay.
It's quite a few years old.
Okay,
UK
but
border
what I
force.
actually watched on the TV was somewhere in Stratford, and the immigration officers were actually stopping people. So again, what I just want you to confirm is, because like Pastor said, I mean, regardless of whatever situation an illegal immigrant finds himself in, I think is a violation against human rights to just stop anybody on the street. So what I want to find out from you is, are you definitely saying that immigration officers found themselves in Stratford because maybe it was police-led? So it wasn't necessary, because what I saw on the TV was they were literally stopping people who were going to work and asking individual questions. So I want to find out from you, are you definitely saying that was maybe police-led or something? There was a reason why they had to be there?
Train stations. And thank you for the question. Train stations are owned and controlled by the British Transport Police. So we were invited by the British Transport Police on that occasion. But we don't actually do most of that situation. But let me tell you something. There's going to be probably some changes again coming up. We don't do that now, but with the current situation of what is happening at Calais, with the influx of people and the people I have encountered at Victoria, I think we might be doing a lot of train station time soon, because Look, I'm going to be honest with you. There is it's for your protection. What we're talking about, we've got a lot of people that are into a lot of terrorist group, and that is we're scaling to a severe situation now. So all this, what we're talking, is going to be pushed under the carpet. We'll have a situation at hand now. We'll have a lot of people, all UK bound, coming in, and if they are just like immigrants or something, it's fine. But a lot of them have got different intention. So we need to be on the high. We can't let them be here while we're here. So train station, bus stop, all down. You will not even be talking. You'll be asking us, why are you not there? Why are you not there?
Yeah. The question I want to ask is, some of our people, they are in the habit of phoning immigration on themselves. When you get calls from these people, what question do you ask them before you actually come to make arrest on those people? Like maybe they have misunderstanding and they call immigration on themselves.
As a malicious weapon.
Yeah. Yeah. We know people do that a lot. People just call my neighbor, I saw them this, that, blah, blah. We know they got bad blood. We write this information down. We investigate everything we do before we take action. We go to court to get warrant before coming. So we've got the law, and the judges are not that, the magistrates are not that easy. They ask everything. How do you know it's there? What was its color? Is it because it's black? Is it because it's Asian? And so there's a lot of questions being asked. So don't think we don't just come. The judge self doesn't even want us to come, because if you're coming, his name is on the warrant. So he really wants to know why you're going. People call because they don't like their neighbor. We'll have all those kind of neighbor. We'll still listen to them. But most of the time while we come, we'll have to have a record of you. We'll have to do our investigation, make sure that this person we're after is an offender. If it's not, we will not come. We don't have time for your neighbor or hala.
I have a little question here, though I don't believe in it, but I know some people that are involved in it. I want to ask people on that are homosexual. Is a kind of, some countries are not allowed to practice, but these countries are allowed by law to practice, and they find themselves in this kind of country. It's a life they have chosen, but in the other angle, that life is not permitted for them. On the humanitarian ground, are those people also deported to go and face their death in that country?
It is part of the fundamental human rights. It's part of the refugee, the convention. It's part of the refugee convention. And sexual orientation is one of them. If somebody has been discriminated because of their sexuality and they come to the UK, they are quite within their rights to apply for asylum on that basis. And then it'll be heard through the immigration court.
Yeah, I hope you are able to take some notes away as well, because you are in the system, based on opinions of the communities as well. You haven't really mentioned any formal, you mentioned a gentleman in Nigeria that helps people to be assimilated back into society, but you haven't really mentioned if there's a social integration program, robust social integration for people to go back home. And based on what he also said as well about Cali and people who are coming in, does the UK enforcement force have a kind of machinery in place to stop or control effectively the entrance of somebody, instead of allowing so many of them, that extends even to the embassies as well, instead of allowing them to come in first and then be trying to, get them out. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. And then he mentioned a question earlier on that I think that is worthy of note. It might not be your area, your forte, but you might be able to take it back to the general community of law enforcers. Now, why the sudden aggression or aggressive approach on voluntary return and immigration policy. What is the system of the government trying to get to? He mentioned about illegal immigrants working in the system who have contributed a lot to the economy. About 2 or 3 months ago in America, Obama did mention a program for illegal immigrants who have been in US, I think for 17 or 15 years or upwards, who have contributed and not been criminal in any way of in their living, their living standards in the society, that they could come out and be assimilated properly into the system. It's not the same approach that UK is having. UK is having go home. You know, so I'm wondering why the sudden aggressive approach. What is in the mind of the government? Why are they?
Let me start with the social integration under assisted voluntary return, and this has been on for a long time. But unfortunately, in our own community, it has not been popular or known. It was assisted voluntary return was being managed by IOM. Anybody knows them? What IOM does is when people are living here under assisted voluntary return, you have somebody back home in your home country, whatever country it is, who would assist you in terms of your reintegration back into the system. Now, with Nigeria, we haven't had much. In fact, so many people have not heard of assisted voluntary return. Has been on for quite a long time. The intake from the Nigerian community has been more or less like zero until 2009, when ABLE started going around and raising awareness on assisted voluntary return. Now, one of the things that ABLE is doing with the government is to say, yes, we're encouraging people to go home, but what we need on the other end is a process where people will first go, when they go back to Nigeria, for example, somebody that has been away for 17 years, that has never been to Nigeria, even once in that 17 years, you don't want them to plunge straight into the system. What you need is something like a safe house, where they will be maybe for 3 months to get them back into the system, to get them acquainted to what is now happening in the country. And from there on, they ease themselves into the country. We're not there yet, I can tell you that. We're working towards that. There's no, painting it any way or the other. But what this organization, this young man that I said is doing, is that when people are being sent home, he actually gets a call, he meets them at the airport, and then works with them to ease them into the system. What his future plan is to have like a center in Badagry, because Badagry is a very quiet place. If you're coming to UK, if I'm coming from UK, you don't want to go straight into a very noisy, rowdy area. You want somewhere away from everyone that you can settle in, get yourself acquainted to whatever it is you want to, do, and you have people on ground to actually work with you. So,
But that's a non-governmental initiative.
yeah, it has to be, but it will be in collaboration with, because what ABLE is now pushing is that the British High Commission in Nigeria comes on board to support this, because people have to. Because Finland is doing the same thing with this young man now, and people that are being deported or returned from Finland, he's working with the Finnish government to ensure that back home there is a process for them to go through. So yes, we are not there yet, but that is the plan to get there. And it's part of the reason is because within the community there has not been a huge intake. It has been swept under the carpet. I mean, you just said it yourself, you've never heard of assisted voluntary return. Assisted voluntary return, has been there for quite a while. Now, just to go back quickly, somebody, the mention of the station. Now, like I said before, it could be that there are people who do not understand that even when you don't pay your tickets, some people get into trouble by not paying their ticket. When you go to the barrier, you don't pay your ticket, the inspectors, and if you're fortunate enough there's BTP there, then you get your details taken off you and your details get flagged. So like I said, again, it's ripple effect. One thing triggers it, and then it starts, the ripple effect of even things that, when you woke up in that morning, you didn't think would happen to you just because you decided not to pay for your travel tickets or using other people's travel tickets. Some people do that. When you do that and you're caught, and you know very well that you don't have legs to stand on the country, it then opens up other things about you. So people need to put it into perspective in terms of how, they would come in contact with law enforcement. I know there are other questions, but those were the two that I thought, to address. Any addition? Have we?
Did we cover everything?
Did I cover everything?
Yeah. Sorry.
Of the government, why the Sunday night aggressive?
Yes, that one. I think they're not really aggressive about it. It's not like we're like people believe it's like we're after non-European immigrants. That's what we're after, and it's like, oh, you're making it difficult for non-European migrants to leave the country, leave. We don't have anything doing. It's that if you encounter a lot of people, if you have the opportunity to see a lot of people that are actually being exploited, a lot of them are non-Europeans, and they've been exploited big time in this country. Even in known restaurants that I go to, you'd be surprised what I encountered there.
But that's exactly the point I'm making, because in comparison to what Obama said,
yes,
come out will help you. You're saying come out, go home.
What we're saying is this. This is United Kingdom. This is not United States. Americans have not been, they've got their own problems. It's just America and no other body else. We have got us here, and we'll have 1 million of them, European countries, that are giving us pressure. All those people that are coming there saying, probably, what do we have in plans to acquire all those people? It's the pressure we're getting from these neighboring countries. They actually want them to come in. They come into their own country and just tell them, have a nice day, you could go. And they're all making their way here. So it's like they're watching us while we should crash. So we have to do something. It's not about the inspiration that way. We just felt, look, to me, this is how it is. I think it's a first step of we trying to help people that have got nobody to help them. Government is there to help you because people feel, I don't have paper. I can't go to the hospital. I don't have paper. I can't go to police station, even though somebody's abusing you. This is like an opportunity that has been, open. Maybe probably not perfect as you want it to be, but at least the first step. And I think we could build on it to get better. From the information we've gotten from you, we're going to feed them back at the office, and we hope something will get better.
Sorry, I have one question.
And the last time I traveled to Nigeria, at the airports, I found out that the policemen and immigration officers, they have long list of names of people to arrest. And this guy took my passport and looked at me more than 5 times. And I was trembling because if it is mistake of identity, something will have, they would have arrested me for nothing. So why is that? Yeah, at the airport.
What state are you from?
Port Harcourt.
Okay.
Yeah.
Basically, I've got friends in that area,
yeah.
And the fact is that they have their own intelligence-led operation that says there's a lot of people from some parts of the country, I won't name those states, that are into prostitution, racketeering, drug trafficking in Europe. So when they're coming back, they make them go through their list. I've seen that happen too, and I've questioned, and that's how I got to know this information. So it's not us doing it. It's not we giving them information. It's their own operation. So it's just that the moment they look at your name and they feel this is from that area, they will just section you to that area. So it happened to my friend. That's why I was able to ask them, what's going on? And they explained to me that, look, this is what is going on and all that. So it's got nothing to do with UKBA.
Thank you. I have a question. Why is it that when you submit application to the Home Office, they will not notify you, and the next thing you'll be arrested, and the straight is you're going to get a ticket? I've seen more than 1, 2, 3, 4 cases like that. They submitted application to Home Office. They didn't notify their lawyer, not even them. So later, when they called, they said, okay, we've told you that you should leave. Okay, lawyer said, I didn't get anything. You yourself, you didn't get anything. But why did they do that?
What kind of application are we talking
Like
about?
maybe they want to get out to stay in the UK. Maybe they submit application. Okay, or depends on.
Look,
whatever.
first of all, if you are in the UK illegally, you've committed an offense. Okay? So you're like in breach of some laws which you've got no rights to be here. So when the officers look at your application, you've been here, you came in 99, you're making an application in 2015. For God's sake, that's been like a long time. So you've actually broken the law. So first step is to actually make you know that you're an offender, arrest you. If your application is pending, you will not be arrested. So I don't know where that came. Probably you put in the wrong application. It's like I said to you the other time, people claiming putting an application for EU. You're not in EU. But as I said, somebody cannot tell you to put an application for EU. You are not EU. You came in with a Duffer passport. You don't even have a visa when you came in. So there's a bit of areas that you yourself, common sense will tell you, how did I qualify for that? I don't even live in France. I don't live in Germany. I live here. So there's a lot of things you can. It's exploiting you. I will advise you, seek different solicitors. Go to our website, read information. There's a lot of things that you don't even need the solicitor for. You could do it yourself. People will just keep paying somebody £500 to help them fill form that you could fill yourself. I don't know. You've been here 20 years, make an application. We don't want to send everybody back home. We want you to please make an application if you think you qualify. Not just stay home and expect us to come look for you and then tell us, oh, I've been here 25 years. Well, we don't know. You need to make an application. And if you make an application and if you're qualified, you'll be given papers. So we'll not be having this conversation. And a lot of people do want to go back home. You might be surprised. There are a lot of people who want to go back home. I get calls every day, people, and you said you're going to send my passport. Where's my ticket? And they'll be at the airport waiting for me before I got there. So you should know how people, they've been exploited. We'll have to look for a refuge for them, make sure they are protected. The woman has to be sent to police because she was using her for prostitution. This one was a lot of things. I don't even want to go into it. You'd be shocked. A lot of people that call themselves, good people in society are actually very, very corrupt. When it comes to money, people do anything. So I'm only trying to, that aspect, let's look at it. I know you look at it that, oh, the immigration officer doesn't want us to all go, Nigerians, all of you go back home. No, I'm a Nigerian too. And I have 1,000,001 people that I know that don't have papers. All I say, get your rights, go apply. That doesn't mean you should stay here because you're Nigerian. It's not, well, there's law. We'll have to abide by the rule of law.
Okay, once more, thank you so much. Like I said at the beginning, if you have any burning questions that you are unable to ask in this forum, if you put it on a piece of paper, we will go back. Some things have been raised here today that we will take away and raise with the appropriate team that deals with that. Thank you so much, Pastor. And I just hope that other pastors would take your approach to have this kind of discussion. As you can see, because some people have said, even my own church, and they don't bring immigration people to our church. And I'm saying, you better listen here now, because if you call me, I won't, well, there's nothing I can do anyway. It's better for you to listen, hear, and then engage. It's because we keep burying our heads in the sand and we do not want to engage. We need to start engaging. Thank you very much for your time.
Let's put our hands together for them. We can excuse you. We can excuse you. We can excuse you. We can excuse